Hello and welcome to the TMC Newsroom. Thanks for watching us today. This week we are in San Jose, California, speaking to some of the best and brightest companies in Silicon Valley. On our program is Srinivas Mantripragada. He is the CTO and VP of Products at Redshift Networks. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich.
So why don't you give us 30 seconds on what your company does?
Sure. We have been focusing very narrowly around securing communications and collaboration networks, applications, and servers. With the growing prominence of VoIP and SIP trunking, there's a lot of security challenges which are quite different from your traditional data deployments, and then that's where Redshift Networks has a strong presence there.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about a recent blog entry you wrote regarding the voicemail hacking scandal. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean that's very scary, and it just shows how easy is it to hack voicemails. Now, in this specific scenario, it was as simple as guessing the passwords, which most people don't change, and they come with vendor default installed passwords, which are very easy to Google and get it. But it also shows that as VoIP and UC takes a mainstream prominence, it's very easy to script all of these scenarios where you can quickly scan your network, figure out who your legal usernames are, what are the legal extensions are, and then figure out passively brute force or from Googling what their default passwords are, and allow you to carefully craft packets where you can steal those voice messages without the legitimate user not knowing about it. So that's where the challenge is how to make sure that as these informations, which can be from confidential information to stock codes to insider tradings to a lot of different stuff that can happen. In this scenario, it was about dirt material that could hit into the tabloids. So as voice and data are converging, so compliance issues around insider leakage of messages and all that is very important, and that's where security comes as a strong play.
And so the issue here is not just about voicemail hacking, but just that you've got to be careful in the world of unified communications, just trying to make sure that you've I guess it's put a brighter light on the security of voice and video networks within an enterprise.
Yes, yeah, I think that's rightly said. As UC is this common umbrella term that touches multimodal ways of communications, whether it's IM or chat or voice or video or web or sharing, file sharing, desktop sharing, app sharing. So there's a lot of different ways of how people are now communicating and collaborating using the same underlying backbone, and any one weakest link can essentially become the exposure of the information, and that's where a holistic representation and characterization of the problem sets and security posture is very important for a business holder.
So what are you hearing in the market about security? Are your customers talking to you much about that?
Yeah, I think we have just seen just in the last 6 to 9 months a certain uptick in just the nature of threats and vulnerabilities that have been exposed from our customers, is because I think SIP trunking is now becoming a mainstream wide deployment, and enterprises, just from a pure cost economics perspective, are widely deploying SIP trunks, connecting their internal networks directly to the core, and because of that, there's lots of different attack threats happening, from botnet attacks coming from all over. China is a big example of that we are seeing from our own honeypot research, and toll frauds, denial of service attacks, to vulnerabilities, to leakages of information, scannings, injection. SQL injection was one of them that we saw recently. Protocol fuzzings. So there's a lot of different threats that we are seeing these networks have to face on a day-to-day basis. And the analogy is very similar to, I think, what we saw in port 80 HTTP traffic about a decade back, as more and more applications started becoming web-facing, and we saw the whole threats following that. And it's very similar with SIP and SIP trunking taking prominence on the mainstream. We'll see a lot of that happening as well.
So how does your company help your customers?
So we are predominantly focused on providing a complete what we call as app-aware visibility, control, and protection for these networks, which is this common collaboration networks. The ability for us comes is in our own core technology components, where we understand the deep application level state transitions and the user behaviors and interactions with these applications, which allows us to proactively and 0-day identify these threats and potential vulnerabilities without human intervention. So that's where our challenge is, and that's where our core value prop is for our customers.
What's next?
That's a good question. I think the area that we're looking into very squarely, and which is the area that I'm going to talk about at TMC West, is this whole
the IT Expo West in Austin.
Yeah, IT Expo West.
Yeah, thanks for the plug.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's where, and I think there's an interesting promise around intersections of cloud and infrastructure and your traditional comm-related applications and services, and that presents some interesting paradigm shift in terms of how the CapEx-related expenditures are now moving more towards managed services, OpEx-driven revenue models. And I think that's where there's a big push towards how the legacy comm stacks are now need to be rewritten to be exposed as web services APIs or things like that, where it's multi-tenant and talk to multi-users, multi-applications, and so on. So I think that's an area that there's a lot of promise, and we definitely want to be a ride in that way.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.